Meet the Author event organized by Falcon Publishing. Big warm welcome to all our wonderful guests. We appreciate your time taking out for our busy schedule to join us for this evening's program. Your presence truly makes this event even more special. So I would like to first introduce Mr. Vibhor Mohan, the brilliant man behind the unique book Chandigarh, the backstory, the city it couldn't be. The title of this book itself is so captivating, and we are very excited to hear the backstory of this book by the man himself. So before we get started, let me introduce to our fantastic author, Mr. Vibhor Mohan. He is a senior journalist who has an experience of almost 25 years of working with leading English newspapers. He lives in Chandigarh and writes passionately about the changing of face of the city. So Mr. Vibhor Mohan has a doctorate from Punjab University. He is also a new media researcher. His first book, Chandigarh Unmasked, was a fictional account of the city's past. This time, he decided to do an scholarly research to write about Chandigarh's biography, mixing its social and architectural aspects into an engaging and vibrant tale that will make you an inch closer to this beautiful city, Chandigarh. So, we also have our esteemed moderator for this evening, the talented Madam Jaskiran Kapoor. Jaskiran Kapoor, a content writer, a media consultant, previously worked as a special correspondent at the Indian Express in Chandigarh, known for her captivating storytelling and communication skills. She loves collecting new people. Currently, she is pursuing her passion as she showcases her talent through interviews on YouTube channels and by just talking. So I would request ma'am to start the discussion. Please.
Hi everyone, how are you? Thank you for coming out. It's quite hot, है ना? And 4 o'clock we should be serving tea also साथ में, है ना? Chandigarh and cha. All right, so I know Vibhor for many years because when I started in Express he was there, and we've had our fights over stories. We used to cover university at that time. And I've seen his passion for Chandigarh. He used to really take out so many stories, Chandigarh. So now when he's out with his second book, first was a fiction, second is a very well-researched non-fiction book, which I'm sure will find its way in a lot of colleges of architecture and other academic institutions. My question to him, I was sitting and chatting with him, "Tusi Patiale de ho, then why write about Chandigarh?" What is his love with Chandigarh?
You can call it my inner calling, but you know, even when we used to grow up in Patiala, so every summer vacation we would come to Chandigarh, and so I have in a way seen Chandigarh both as an outsider, and then when I was with the Times of India, I used to cover the Chandigarh administration, and as luck would have it, we had an editor from Ahmedabad. And Kabuzia has worked in Ahmedabad as well. He is an consultant there. So then he asked me to kind of explore the city's heritage. So that's how I developed interest. And then I also got a chance to meet with Mr. M. Sharma, who had worked with Kabuzia, then Lake Chand, so all these people. So then the whole anecdotal accounts of the making of the city. So that fascinated me. So when I wrote the first book, it was a fictional account because everybody said that you should write for the youth and you should be kind of easy to read and that kind of thing. These bestseller advices that you get. So
when did you start working on this one? And why? Why particularly? Because there are books on Chandigarh that explore Chandigarh and sari history and all they tell. So what sets this book apart, and when did you start writing about it?
I think Mike is working.
Am I audible? Okay. So what sets this book apart?
This one, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You just stick it to our mouth.
Right.
Hello. Okay, so what inspired you to write this one? Did you have like whole pitara of anecdotes and stories that let's just get down and find out the one thing that others have not written about? Because when I was reading, this thing that Mayer and Norwicki were the original American architects on it.
Yeah.
They had a different view. Then suddenly Corbusier comes and sort of hijacks the whole plan and says, "Nahi, main karunga,"
Right.
you know. And of course, because Norwicki died.
Right.
So a lot of other nice stories. Tell me about that. And when did you plan to write this? What sets this book apart?
So personally, why did I plan to write a non-fiction after fiction, trying to be a Taylor Swift in that sense, shifting genres.
Yeah.
So the first thing was that when I wrote the fictional account, a lot of people said that we can't make out what's fiction and what are the facts. So that's how I wanted to give it a sense of closure. That here are the bare facts. And secondly, I wanted to go beyond the anecdotal account, because you have this whole first generation of Chandigarh residents who came here from Shimla, elsewhere, lawyers and others. They can tell you all the anecdotes, that you could see the railway station from a rooftop in sector 4 or 5, and all kinds of things. So when I started looking for the documents, I somehow wanted to see the document for myself. I didn't want to rely on second hand. It has all been written about in some ways. And secondly, I don't belong to the Corbusian club.
Is there a Corbusian club? I didn't know about
I
it.
say that because
Secret society of some.
I say that because when you give the title, you bring Corbusier in the title of your book.
It's a search engine optimization.
That's right. So it makes it more internationally sellable. It's more marketable that way. So I am no member of that club. So I wrote as an outsider, and at the same time, I did critique Corbusier wherever
I know.
I wanted to be
read
fair.
that.
So I have. It's not that it's a purely a historical account, and there's no critique of the architecture and how the city has evolved. I have tried to bring that in, but I haven't tried to heap praises on Corbusier.
I know. So how has the city evolved? This was considered to be like unfettered by the past, and
Yes.
this new city which Nehru wanted to just captivate everyone, and he wanted one such city in every state. But I think Chandigarh was the only one that was able to. And why bring in foreign architects? Where were the Indian ones? Did you ever question that?
No, they've already, when the search for these architects began, when they approached Nehru for that, they said that we don't have qualified architects in India. That is one thing. Although we have this traditional Shilp Shastra or Vastu Shastra to rely on, then I think another factor was that Nehru himself wanted somebody from the West. So the Europeans who just a few months or 1.5 years back we had got independence. We are talking about 1948. So
1950
yeah.
this began.
Yeah. So we drove out the British, but they were welcome as technicians. So we were welcoming them as architects.
We made them work for us.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So that was there, and but they did kind of cite this as a reason to bring them on.
Your book is interesting in ways that yes, you do not glorify Corbusier. You talk about a lot of other people who are part of the team. Varma, Thapar. So,
that's another thing. That
yeah.
there's this researcher said that it's a myth-making discourse around Corbusier. That when you talk about him, people appreciate and say, yeah, this is Corbusier in Chandigarh. So, but the problem is that when you try to move away from that, for instance, when I began research for this book and I wanted to write about Norwicki. If you see his drawings, we have used some of them in the book. He was so talented, and he was only 45, I guess.
Yeah, so Matthew Norwicki was the first, the American architect, and he and Mayer and him were hired to design Chandigarh, and their design was, if you read about it, Vibhor will tell you. I think that I find that more fascinating than what Corbusier gave us. So not critiquing, but just an observation.
So, but
we can talk about that also.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's only Corbusier's name that rings the bell in Chandigarh. If I tell you something about Chandigarh and talk about Corbusier, you would be interested. But if I tell you about Nobiki, you wouldn't know him. It's now people know about a little bit about genre because we have this genre museum, and but it's like Corbusier has kind of he has so far overshadowed everything. And talking about the Maya Nobiki plan, see, as John Keats said that herd melodies are sweet, but
are sweeter.
So it's great to romanticize and think about that plan and live in a city that isn't, imagine yourself there. But at the same time, many people who have researched their plans, they have said that it was still at a very preliminary stage, and they call it the sketch design status. So,
what did you like about the plans?
See, one thing is that they wanted to push the Capitol complex closer to the hills, and they wanted to surround it with a necklace of water, a glittering necklace of water. That's what he said, like a picture frame.
Very romantic version of a city.
Yeah, since I'm a student of mass communication, one thing I really liked about Corbusier and Mayer was that the kind of hyperbole that they use. You read a Corbusier letter and you read a genre letter. There's a stark contrast. So when he wrote to Nehru, it did have an impact. And the vocabulary that he used, the punchlines. For instance, we have this message by Corbusier at the lake that this lake is a gift to the citizens of the city, so that they can escape the humdrum of daily life. Things like that. So many years later, we still use those
lines and
those.
So, how much time did it take you to research? Because you've thanked a lot of people, a lot of institutes. How much of back and forth and fact checking? Because these days fact checking is a big thing. And as a reporter, as your background,
yes.
How much did it come in handy? How did you approach and write the book? And how long did it take you? Because that's a journey of a writer, to write, then to also sell and find publishers, and get it out there.
True. But if you could finish the thing about Mayer and Nobiki.
Yeah, sure.
So Mayer's fascination with the Capitol complex was one thing, and then Nobiki had his own thing, and he was very good at designing and sketch designs, very colorful sketch designs. So he was working on a super block, like Corbusier brought in sectors, he called them sectors. So Nobiki was working on a prototype of a super block, and the houses that he made, those were like very out of the box, and they were basically making a city for the Punjabis at that time, which was primarily their lifestyle was primarily rural oriented, village life. So his houses, if you see, they had internal courtyards and there were chajjas. So he said that it would be a city modern, yet with a very vague sense of
Punjabi rustic life.
So that was their idea. So they were kind of tailor-make the city as per the social aspirations and the lifestyle at that time. But then Corbusier comes in and he says that no, this is not how you make cities. So he brought in the practices, best practices, universal practices. Chandigarh can be made anywhere. The concept that he used. So he said, so that is why in a way, if you see, Chandigarh determines your lifestyle. It makes you follow how things are done. Instead of this city following the lifestyle of the people, here it is the city that dictates how people go about things.
Yeah,
it does bring in a sense of orderliness to our lives.
Yes, it does.
It has been built, but definitely it is not an Indian city in that sense.
No, it's very structured.
Yeah.
Has it evolved over the years? Do you feel that it's now moving away from the original Corbusian thought at play? Because it's now, especially post-COVID, the way it has become amoebic in its existence, it's just expanding.
See, evolved, one thing is that we should be fair to the architects that they were planning in the early 1950s. So now the thing is that uh, the team that they put together, the architects and also the young engineers, they were kind of smitten by the Corbusian bug, and also because they wore this whole Corbusian thing as a badge of honor. That see, I worked with Corbusier.
Was it also colonial hangover? I've worked with this team.
No, colonial hand not that way, but it kind of it sells, to say that if I tell you I interviewed Corbusier,
I interviewed Imtiaz Ali. Okay, so this is I want to ask this question. This is at the back of the book, which I was very curious about. Why can't the city have skyscrapers? And why have cleaners passages and parda screens in houses? Interesting. Why?
See, as far as skyscrapers is concerned, when Corbusier came to Chandigarh and he was taken to this site where we have the capital complex now, so he said this calls for a Corbu, because all his life he had been advocating high rises, skyscrapers. He said, Paris should be built again and skyscrapers and cars all over. So that was his
style.
Yeah. So then he had to be reined in.
Okay.
So that is why these two officials, Thapar and Verma, they played such a crucial role, and that is why we say that it is a hybrid master plan. It has contributions from all these people. So Thapar was a very strong administrator. The way we have people in the private sector. So he would give very inhuman deadlines to the architects.
Yeah.
Okay, I want this ready in 2 days. This whole house designed in 2 days. So he told Corbusier that we don't have the wherewithal, the technology and the resources to build skyscrapers. So in fact, it is believed that he had told him earlier on. So when Thapar and Verma had gone to meet Corbusier in Paris, he gave them a train ticket and he said that you first go and see some of my works. And so when the negotiations were on, they told him that our city is not going to be like this. It would be a low-rise city. So then Corbusier he sulked for a while, and this is also he sulked. He retreated into his den, they say. And Thapar would tell this story to most journalists who would come there. So it is kind of pretty well documented. And then 2 days later, he came back with another plan. So he actually wanted a 42-story storied secretariat. Then he revised the plan. And he made it more horizontal and only 8-story high. So that is how the Indians ensure that it remains a low-rise city.
Which is good now. I think it's worked to our advantage only.
I think another reason was that, to fund this project, they wanted to sell off plots. So they wanted it to grow horizontally.
To expand that ways.
Yeah. So it suited them. Had it gone vertical, it would have
bought them that much money also.
Yeah.
So why have cleaners passages and this parda screens in houses or jali that they make?
Yeah. So as far as government houses,
cleaners passages are service lanes. What are cleaners passages?
No, service lanes, not service lanes. These were passages inside the houses.
Okay.
So when I started researching the government houses, so I remember, I knew somebody, so I went there and he called all his neighbors in Sector 22. And all these people came and he said that he plans to write on the government houses. So he said, one of them said, what is the big deal about these houses? So he said, he's a senior journalist, he thinks at a different level. But when I explored further, there were certain things which were very interesting and most people didn't know about them. Like sunbreakers is one thing which most people know, that heat control was a major concern for the architects. And government housing is not done by Corbusier. He didn't design any of these.
It's very rare.
Primarily genre, because Maxwell Fry and Jane Drew left after 3 years. So, and genre continued until 1965. So he made the biggest chunk of the houses. So one of the things was that a few houses have these separate corridors, and which is reflective of the social taboos at that time, because people didn't want the sweepers to enter the living room. So initially, when they started designing the houses, they would take feedback from the prospective allottees. So they said that this is one of our key demands. So if you see one of the houses there, the moment you enter, there's one door that goes to the living room, and there's a door on the side which is a passage. And when you enter, you see the washroom, toilet, and then it goes to the kitchen. And then you can take the garbage collector could have taken the back door and exited. So that kind of thing.
They're very discriminatory from the beginning.
So they said that they would call in 10 representatives from each class of employees, and it was the middle-aged guys, who were slightly forward-looking, and they said that we are ready to try out your experiments, the Western way of life. For instance, the older people would insist on, sitting on the ground and cooking, squatting and cooking. So that is something they had to incorporate in the earliest lot of houses. So then when these other variants came up, where the rooms were bigger and there were no passages, and when people saw those, so then eventually they agreed to get rid of the passages. But I personally found them very fascinating.
What else did you find fascinating while researching the book? Anything that threw up old memories, or any stories that you remember while researching, which probably didn't find way into the book, but you'd like to create another book on it?
There are also elements in the book which talk about the human side of the architects, beyond their designs and their architectural work, because most books are written by architects. So, for instance, John Ray, he was a complete contrast from Corbusier's personality. So, but then there was a time when he put his foot down. He said, "I will write the ACR of my architects," and there was this whole politics going on, and the people he wanted to promote didn't get promoted. So he shot up a letter to Nehru. So, and his whole frustration is pretty well documented. Randhawa wrote to him, he was the chief commissioner at that time, that these are matters of protocol, you don't write to the Prime Minister on this. Then Jane Drew was an ardent feminist. So at a lecture, somebody introduced her that we have Mrs. Maxim Fry with us, and she corrected him quietly. And he said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Maxim Fry couldn't be with us. Instead, we have Miss Jane Drew with us." Things like that. And she said that the contracts that they had, Maxwell Fry would get more salary, her husband, than her. She said, "This is not fair. You club the two salaries and then you divide them into two parts." That kind of
Fair
thing.
enough. She put in all the work. That's still the case
Then
today.
there's more to it. She started an all women's practice in the 1940s. She managed to break the glass ceiling in terms of architecture, and she did that. So those kind of things. But the reason that this British couple, left after 3 years, was that they wouldn't want to work under the PWD department, which was the hierarchy at that time. The architects would report to them. And then things like the hot weather, scorching heat, that was a big put up for them. So that is why they left after 3 years, but John Ray stayed on.
So the city, it couldn't be. What, according to you, after all this research, is elements of what part of Chandigarh that it couldn't be? Or is it better now?
So there are elements in the book. See, one thing is that, as I said, that although the book talks about Corbusier and the other team members and even the officials, their contributions. The hero of the book is Chandigarh, and nostalgia is the overriding theme. So instead of sitting and criticizing the city, 70 years later after it was planned, because this is one thing I have mentioned in the introduction as well, that as I said, that the architects who followed, who came to the helm after Corbusier died and Jobre died and Nehru and all these people, they couldn't break away from the Corbusian legacy. If you, I can't give you examples, but whatever they designed, they were just copying Corbusier. So what should have happened is that their designs and the urban planning should have evolved in keeping with the times, as per the aspirations of the next generation. But that didn't happen. So in a way, it did help in warding off, things like diluting the original character of the city.
I think Corbusier made the plan flexible enough that we are able to have bypass, underpass, overpass. He created enough, he left room for enough flexibility also.
At certain points, I believe we have also kind of, there's this thing about that Corbusier wanted to save the skyline, although he wanted skyscrapers. So, we would cite one letter and say that no, he wanted this. So, that has been there. So, the next generation of architects who were there at the helm, they said, okay, this is the Corbusian thought process and we have to follow this. So, it did help in Chandigarh not going through drastic changes. For instance, we had this time when, everything, there was theme park, medicity, all the, so we would have had no surplus land in the city, no buffer space. So it helped in keeping that away, but at the same time, nobody worked on evolving the plans. For instance, there was this plan to have an 11-story building in Sector 17, and they were working on it, and at that time it couldn't materialize because there were no takers. The Postal and Telegraph Department didn't want to, pay for the building, but eventually it never materialized.
And eventually the name was never New Lahore. It came down to Chandigarh. How did they decide, okay, let's not keep it New Lahore, let's keep it Chandigarh?
See, name, although there's a chapter that there was a place called Chandigarh, and there was a place called Chandigarh initially.
Yeah, there were villages and the Chandi Devi's temple also there.
Yes. So there was a suggestion to call it New Lahore, but I think it was primarily Thapar and Verma who took the call. So there was no debate about it, or it didn't go to the assembly that what should be called the new city. So in that sense, even if you look at it, Thapar and Verma, two officials go abroad and they hire Corbusier and they hire John Ray and Maxwell Fry. So you don't expect this to happen now. Even,
No, we have good architects. We are seeing Chandigarh really change now.
As in the decision-making authority, the Punjab government authorized them to go ahead and hire anybody, So that was pretty free hand, they were given in those days. Today it would be marred with controversy. If somebody goes there and makes these changes on his own. So that was there, but we should definitely, work out a system where we evolve the original plans made by Corbusier. And at the same time, we should ensure that the original character doesn't get diluted.
Are you a half architect by now? Are you going to design your house or something? And what elements do you want to see in Chandigarh, which does not dilute the Corbusian thought or the Nehruvian dream, but also lends a more, because sometimes I feel Chandigarh is in transit, doesn't have its own, I don't know what heritage you talk about, we don't have a heritage, it's a very young city. That's what I feel. It's like you said, it's a structured city, you live according to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't live according to you.
True.
So what would you like in all this research that you've done?
See, I used to cover the Chandigarh administration in 2010, 2011, 2012. So even in those days, I used to start my story saying
When? Vibhor, tell me when. You're the reporter. Kab aayegi metro?
So things like
It's like
that.
we are standing on the station.
So metro again, they wanted to go underground.
No one will let them touch their houses.
Yeah.
We are very proud Chandigarhians
No,
that way. कोई नहीं हाथ लगाएगा कनाल की कोठी को, दो कनाल की कोठी को. That's Corbusier has given that.
And the argument that they gave was that otherwise it could spoil the skyline.
Yeah, true.
So
It will spoil. It's a very small. Why can't they have trams, going around circularly instead of?
See, public transport as it is, I don't know how many Chandigarh residents would want to switch to public transport unless it is very good.
Chandigarh residents want Audis and Fortuners and Beamers. The spoiled Chandigarh residents. Alright, I guess now we can open the house to questions from Vibhor, please. He's an authority on Chandigarh. So, please, anything.
What is the contribution of nature to the Chandigarh?
See, I was fortunate enough to meet him several times, and I think before Rock Garden, we didn't have a cultural identity as a city. We were a part of this area belonged to Punjab, and we had that whole culture. But he gave us that cultural identity. You have these replicas of sculptures by Mr. Nechan, and you can find them in the lawns of houses. So in a way that really helped, in terms of giving a new identity to Chandigarh.
Handicraft of Chandigarh.
Yeah.
The other day I was asking question, what is the handicraft and food of Chandigarh? There's a question in exam from state or UT. And this child asks us, कि Chandigarh का क्या है? I said, Punjab का जो है. So I asked him, I said, your authority tell us the handicraft and the food of Chandigarh.
But there's a whole chapter in the book on the villages. It's called Ode to the Punjabi Villages, which were required for making the city. And it is a very emotive issue for people, who were uprooted. And I did get a chance to meet several families. And some of them had to actually go through double acquisition, They were ousted from here.
But Vada is still there.
Yeah, and then again the land was acquired. So stories like that. And apart from this whole debate about Punjab, Haryana, so there's this whole element about the acquired villages, and people still feel very strongly about it.
Yes.
Why was sector a multiple of 13? Opposite like 5 and 8, 4 and 9 and things like that.
See, that is very interesting. Although there's this thing about why Sector 13 was not made, and it is considered unauspicious by the Europeans, so they left it out. But despite that, the figure 13 continues to haunt Chandigarh. So when you kind of...
Haven't they officially made PGI 13 now?
They have this Sector 13 now.
Mani Majra.
Yeah, right.
Although, there is also a claim that they did want to have Sector 13, but when these sectors were planned around it, Sector 12, and PGI and Punjab University, Sector 14, so there was no space left, so it kind of got squeezed out. But nobody, there's no kind of any statement attributed to Corbusier on this. So
By multiples of 13 also? If you add up opposite sectors, they come to as multiples of 13.
I think it's just a matter of chance. Because even the fact that these some of the sector numbers are jumbled up, that is because it was not planned at one go, so they kept adding sectors here and there. So that is why you find some of the sectors are jumbled up.
In fact, Mayor and Norwicki's two sectors they retained, Sector 7 and 8, is according to Mayor and Norwicki's plan. It's not Corbusian plan.
So this whole thing of
So it has A, B, C. It doesn't have a D.
yeah.
No, so Sector 7 was actually those little houses.
Yes.
Were supposed to be temporary accommodation for the engineers
Yes.
who were coming in to build
Yes.
the city. And they were supposed to be torn down once the
They
city
didn't.
got made,
I
but
think
they
that
didn't
CPWD
tear
is
them
still
down.
there. Small.
They just stayed.
So when there's this chapter about the jittery transition from Corbusier to Meyer, so Meyer had made the plan, and he was primarily urban planning was his strength. So he had made the plan, and he thought this new team of architects, they would make architecture to his plan, you know. But when Corbusier arrived on the scene, he kind of tore apart Mayer's plan, and he was asked to kind of refine the plan if needed, but he made his own plan. So at this meeting, we talk about that fateful meeting, which is also pretty well documented, where, you know, Corbusier is explaining his new plan, and Mayer is coming to join the meeting from Delhi. So, and he joins then, and Corbusier continues to speak in French, and he's completely left out. And eventually he's asked to sign that plan as a joint author. So then, you know, at this meeting they said that let's have a friendly competition, and let's have 3 sectors which will be made out as per the Mayer's plan. So that people can see the difference and judge for themselves. But eventually they kind of watered down this whole thing, and if you go to sector 7 or 8, you can't feel the difference.
No, it's similar. It's just that we don't have a D.
D, yeah.
We have ABC.
I mean, there could be more finer points about the urban
That's
planning.
the only thing I could think. D nahi hai.
No, but it would have been very interesting to have, you know, 1 or 2 sectors planned as per their
Yeah,
plan.
but then Americans, Europeans can't see eye to eye also. No?
For instance, Noviki wanted that the sectors should have, you know, high-rise landmarks, which is a must-have for Chandigarh. People often get lost.
Yes.
So he wanted that each locality should have a high-rise, maybe a temple or something, you know, so that people can identify with that area. Then water features they were very fond of, and they wanted to have ornamental facades on the houses, because Noviki apparently went to Rajasthan, and he was very fascinated by the colorful motifs.
Jharokas and all.
Yes. So he wanted to bring in those elements, and fountains, and this street architecture would have been very different had we made as per their plan.
So Corbusier didn't like statues. He said there will be no monuments or statues in the city. So you will not see anyone on a horse or
No
a
roads named
bust
after,
of someone in the middle of it.
and no roads
कुछ
named
नहीं
after
होगा.
people.
He completely stripped everything. It's like Shah Rukh Khan. एक ही गुंडा होगा यहाँ. One bully who will call the shots. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yes, I have a question concerning the location of Chandigarh. You said that there would have been more new cities, but it didn't work.
That was the
right?
Nehruvian dream, to have one Chandigarh, kind of one Chandigarh in every state.
Like why the location of Chandigarh is what it is? Like, is it the topography? Is it because it's
No,
near
I think
Delhi,
partition
or
का था,
it's-
yeah.
See, after partition, Punjab was torn apart, and the capital went to Lahore. Lahore, which was the capital, went to Pakistan. So now they have 2 options: either to have a new city or give the capital tag to an existing city. So they shortlisted 8 cities like Patiala, Jalandhar, Ludhiana, and there was politics over it. The MLAs and ministers from those areas would want the capital tag for those cities. But at that time, you know, the refugees had already started coming in from across the border, and they were camping in these cities, existing cities. So that had exposed the, you know, the lack of infrastructure in these cities, the existing ones. So then they kind of realized that if we give the capital tag to any of these cities, it would be very difficult. So that is why the whole idea about having a new city built from scratch. So then they made a aerial survey, and they really liked this site. And apparently, then again Thapar and Verma were there at the forefront. There was a committee for that. So
It had to be nearer the Shivaliks according to Mayer and Norviki. Corbusier pushed it little over this side.
yeah, the capital.
So where the Sukhna is, the capital had to be there.
Yes.
But there's also controversy about the water availability of water. One of the chief engineers had walked out saying we'll never have sufficient water because there isn't enough.
Then Bhakra was
Groundwater,
created, I
yeah.
think.
So the early years of Chandigarh were pretty turbulent. There were all kinds of pulls and pressures. So since Shimla was the existing capital at that time, the landlords there wouldn't want the city and everybody moving out to Chandigarh. So then there was this rumor mongering happening, and one of the things was that Chandigarh wouldn't have adequate water. So that is why they built the Sukna Lake, and it was like a symbolic message that we have.
So that was just a rumor. There wasn't any.
They had started exploring the underground water before the master plan was drawn up. So it was there on their mind. But there was this thing that the city won't survive because there will be no enough water, not enough water.
Is it also because city is on a gradient, so यहाँ water logging भी नहीं होती?
And in fact, Corbusier wanted that it should be used to supply 16 kilometers, supply vegetables and milk to Chandigarh. That place should be left kind of
Untouched.
Semi-urban, kind of untouched.
But lot of his plan, there is no industrial area. मतलब still we are able to save some pockets. Our industrial area is still very green.
But that's the point I have, like you were saying how Corbusier, we need to update.
Kind of diluted that.
Yes.
But Corbusier, this whole green city thing started with Mr. Fletcher. He was there at the helm in the 1948. So there was no scientific studies to fall back on at that time. So what he would do is, he would take notes from different books on architecture, and he would present them in the cabinet meeting. So one of the things was that he came up with was that we should have a green.
So yeah, but Randhawa was.
Palms hai, wo pata nahi. Those, what are they? I don't know what they're.
Palms are palms. There are different names to the palms.
They are terrible. They just kind of, this leaf will fall from the
Yes,
skies like that.
eucalyptus also. Eucalyptus drinks all the groundwater. That's why they chop down most of the eucalyptus trees, because it sucks the groundwater. Taller the eucalyptus, the more groundwater it sucks.
So Mr. Randhawa used to live in Kharad. Every morning he would come in his car. And
yes.
He would
tanker and ensure
all the saplings are watered properly. And,
yes, and Johal ji is also no more. These people also borrowed a lot from Lutyens, Delhi, that idea of how to plant trees and how the street light has to be behind the tree or something like that, so that the wires don't cross. अभी वो बीच में है तो पेड़ भी काट रहे हैं, मतलब there's a lot of other issues.
A lot of ideas that they had could not be implemented because there was paucity of funds. For instance, they wanted to have underground wires at that time, but there was no money. And also,
17 was supposed to be all green and cafes. The French idea of Corbusier, he wanted to have open cafes.
Yes.
They concretized it all. Get the paise nahi. So that was so many things that could have been.
And even the government houses would have looked so different if they had more funds.
Yes, they would have. But that's so. Yeah, to answer this gentleman's question that you were asking, at that time I feel if we were niyat thi, people were honest. Abhi because of this badniyat and corruption, Zirakpur is what it is. It was supposed to be a city, but it looks like a shithole. So I'm sorry, but anyone from Zirakpur, I feel for them. So
and there's New Chandigarh also.
New Chandigarh is very posh.
No,
New Chandigarh is for the posh crowds.
I'm talking about the New Chandigarh.
New Chandigarh, yes, that's what I'm talking about. You have Tata over there, and you have Cancer Institute and all that.
That's an attempt to piggyback on Chandigarh.
Yeah, that's that. Whoever retires, हमें New Chandigarh जाना है.
Who had those type of savings?
Yeah, he's right. I didn't say that. Yes, please.
Also, I have a question concerning. I'm a French urban planner, and I know the reputation of Le Corbusier and its city, his city in France, the new city in France.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's very controversial, right? So he had a very controversial personality, and many of new cities in France, people say it's a failure sometimes because of segregation, social segregation. I'm coming from social sciences. I'm not from architecture background. So as social scientist, I'm like, sometimes it's completely failure, right? So how is it received here in India? The personality of Corbusier and also its ideas, because it's very controversial in France. He has a very controversial identity. So how is it received here? And
he's a hero.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a book by Madhu Serene, I don't know if you've come across that. That's on the Chandigarh as a planned city, and she talks about this very aspect, that when they built Chandigarh, they did not look...
There's been so much of fluidity of the people coming in, going out, that I think the segregation doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Because the property prices have risen, so what you have is already very expensive that you're living in. So the city has acquired a different kind of nature to itself. And yes, we do ride on Corbusier because it gets us the funds and UNESCO status, because it's Corbusier. So I said, he won't agree. Colonial hangover is there. So.
But Corbusier was Chandigarh people. So
which is okay, because now it's just restricted to a very limited space. In Chandigarh has grown beyond that. And people are now trying to lend their own character to the city.
Yeah. Also, if you see the symbolism and the capital complex, the swastika symbol or other things, the enamel door of the assembly. So these are his own ideas. They have nothing to do with the local population.
Sanjay?
Found in Chandigarh are not native to this place.
No, it's not.
I just think comes back because today in the morning I read an article in Express regarding the invasive species in Andaman. I mean, that they have introduced cheetah there, and that's it has completely destroyed the local flora and fauna. Is there some kind of a comprehensive study done in Chandigarh trying to understand the effect of these, I'll say, invasive species in Chandigarh, how the ecology has changed or...
I think Mr. R.K. Kohli did some work in the Punjab University on this, and we'll have to go back to it and see whether it originates from there or whether these have been brought in at a later stage. Because we definitely, at that time, the nursery that they had set up, it did have some exotic species. So we'll have to explore that.
Dr. Dargan, another professor, Dr. Dargan, I think he worked with Patiala and Ludhiana universities. They did a whole research of the diseased trees in Punjab. So that they did on what are the diseases. So they are the tree pathologists. I found that very interesting, that what afflicts a tree, why does it afflict it, what is the disease. So they got into all that. So maybe he will be able to tell you whether such a study has been done in Chandigarh. He's there in Sector 18, whether it's been done in Chandigarh or not, because that's how they found out that eucalyptus was not very good in some areas, palms were not good. So then they give the feedback to the government. Now it's up to the government whether they want to, like Congress grass was one of the major issues over here in Chandigarh. We see less of it now, not much. Most of it is cut down immediately. Indigenous is neem and mango. This is a mango belt. Purane gharon mein you'll see guava, mango, nimbu. In Sector 7, all trees, lychee. These are the indigenous trees here, fruiting trees. That's why, that's what's the fight with. What's the point of planting just a leafy tree which has no fruit on it or flower on it? It doesn't attract pollination or cross-pollination. So you can't have shortcut things to it. That's a whole horticultural wing. You have to take it up with them. And of course, termites is another issue because moisture and Deemak.
What was the name of the person? The book in such a way that we highlight things that have already been made first. But if you go to this part 2 of the book, and there's this whole thing about Meyer, Corbusier, Novicky, their plan, and this jittery transition from Meyer to Corbusier. So they are some of my favorite chapters.
You like Meyer and Novicky more.
Yeah. So as I said that...
This is a Patiala in you.
Their name doesn't ring a bell, so we had to kind of push it at the back. But those are pretty well researched topics and you should also read them.
Please read the book Chandigarh and the backstory and the city it couldn't be. And yes, it's a wonderful city to be in. It's okay. Safe and insulated. Any more questions? Well, Vibhor is here, please interact with him.
If any of his ideas survive in Chandigarh to define Chandigarh.
Own vegetation, and even Mayer's plan of having little water bodies. These are things that probably were visionary. Today we need it. Probably plant a tree. I always say that, plant a tree. If you're making a house, there should be a strict mandate to plant at least 2 trees in your house compound. Then they'll pass the Naksha. Something like that. South they did it in Kerala. I think in Chennai they did it, the mayor. That you will get this building Naksha passed only if you plant 2 trees.
We have few questions for the audience regarding the book and the conversation. So, which sector was developed as the first typical neighborhood unit of Chandigarh?
2022.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, you haven't
Trivia.
My parents lived there actually when the city was being built. My father's an engineer. So they were in tents when the city was being built.
Yeah, please raise your hands if someone knows the answer. Okay, that would be great for us. Answers. So, can you tell the name of the village that gives the biggest chunk of land for Sector 17? The name of the village. Anyone knows that?
Yeah, I knew it.
Who have read the book, they must have known.
Village Roorkee.
Yeah, that's the right answer. Village Roorkee, Parovali. This is a gift hamper from White Falcon Publishing. Look. So the another one, this might be tough. Rock garden creator Naik Chand had joined the Chandigarh project in what capacity?
He was a
Road
road
inspector.
inspector.
Anush Sani is sitting here, son of nature.
Okay.
Okay, oh. Wait.
We have Mr.
Welcome,
Naik Chand's
sir.
son with us.
Anji?
We have Mr. Naik Chand's son with us.
Yeah, he's sitting there.
For you, sir. So another palace. The building is still unbuilt. Yeah, still unbuilt. So that was planned, but still it hasn't been built.
I read it, I forgot.
Which sector?
The name of the building. Yeah.
Museum of Knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Museum of
Absolutely.
Knowledge. Yes, I Knowledge.
Museum of Knowledge.
In place of the governor's palace.
So these are some easiest questions like we have. What is the official emblem of the beautiful city and what does it symbolize?
Open hand.
And symbolize
Welcome. Welcome.
it symbolizes peace, prosperity and unity. So
It's also a bird ready to fly. Whoa,
We have-
please raise your hand, you said, no? Open hand.
yeah, that's the last.
This is for you.
The last one. Which sector is known as the heart of Chandigarh?
17.
Yeah. No,
17.
this is 17, yeah. The photographer guy, yeah. This is for you.
अब वो heartless हो गया वैसे.
Artless.
They are trying to rebuild it still.
They'll keep rebuilding. So,
Falcon Published has been the forefront of the publishing house industry, helping authors from 40 countries bring their publishing dreams to life. Many of these big books became bestsellers and award winners. White Falcon has emerged as a new age technology-driven publishing offering quality services. To encourage creativity and writing, we have organized literary contests for the past decade. These include literally the South Asian Award for microfiction, Chitti Sarhad Par Se, writers from India and Pakistan to develop the harmony, as well as the summer and winter writing contest and the Indo-Pak photography contest are such few initiatives. Thank you. So now I would like to call Madam Nalsangi Thor, our director, to give the appreciation award to Mr. Vibhor Mohan for his contribution to the world of literature. So now we would like to present the award of appreciation to Madam Jaskiran Kapoor for moderating this session so well and for giving us your time. At last, I would like to thank Vibhor Mohan, Madam Jaskiran Kapoor, friends from media, friends at Bahrisons, and lastly my team at White Falcon for their unwavering support, and especially to the audience who gave their precious time to us in this evening.